Welcome, everyone, to Color Commentary. We are your pauper commentators, Michael Petchik and Adrian Garzales. How's it going, Adrian?
It's a sunny day in Austin, Texas. Sorry, just
Actually a lie.
It is a lie. I just had to do a shout out. We changed our intro.
Yep.
We wanted to streamline the process a little.
Yeah.
I think it works better this way.
Yeah.
We were getting a little too verbose.
Yeah, we were basically wasting a lot of time just introducing ourselves, and most people are longtime listeners of the show, it turns out, so not that much intro needed. It was Thanksgiving this week for those of our followers outside of America. We eat. There's a lot of food.
America.
Yeah. It's the most American of holidays. I went home to see my parents. Adrian stayed here.
My parents came here.
Yeah. Good times.
We were joking beforehand. Pumpkin pie, good in the meta.
Yes. I actually really like pumpkin pie. I'm also a fan of the sweet potato pie, though.
My best pie was chocolate mousse.
Not a fan.
Not a fan of chocolate mousse?
I'm not a fan of chocolate in general. But,
oh my God, Mike.
Yeah,
Barbarian.
Not really my cup of tea.
For our work potluck, I took a 4-berry pie. I don't know what the berries are though. It was just a 4-berry pie.
I was going to come in with, so what 4 berries were they? I'm imagining blueberry, raspberry, blackberry, and
cherry, maybe.
I don't think cherries are a berry.
I think that the term berry is used very loosely. Strawberries are technically an aggregate fruit, Mike. So,
and we've gotten off to a wonderfully sidetracked start already. So since we don't really have an F&M recap to go with this,
we're instead talking about berries.
yeah. This is what you get. This is what happens when we can't go to F&M. So we've got a deck tech this week, and this deck has been posting up some 5.0s. It's Boros tokens.
5.0, where?
Jeez,
Dad
that
jokes.
was that sure happened. All right, so this Boros tokens list has some elements of the Koldatha mid-range sort of style list, but it's more focused on producing a bunch of tokens and swinging out for absurd amounts of damage.
And we did see a deck similar to this back when Drake was a big deal. I think this is when this deck really started to hit its stride because Rally the Peasants was printed at Common and EMA, and that has sort of allowed this deck to go over the top.
Yeah, just lets you push through a little bit, and unlike Guardian's Pledge, doesn't require you to be in mono white.
Right, and also you can play it twice,
yeah.
Which is a huge deal.
All right, well let's get into it. So only 11 actual creature cards in this deck. 4 copies of Glinthawk, 2/2 for a white. When it enters the battlefield, sacrifice it unless you return an artifact you control to your hand. 3 copies of Thraben Inspector.
The white all-star.
Yeah, actually just really solid in these sorts of mid-range decks. Single white mana, you get a 1/2, and when it enters the battlefield, you investigate. So you put a clue token into play, which is just an artifact that says 2 generic, sacrifice this, draw a card.
Right, just an incredible card that we saw out of the Shadows of Innistrad block.
Yep. Then we got 4 copies of Core Skyfisher, 2/3 with flying for 1 and a white. When it enters the battlefield, return a permanent you control to its owner's hand.
Are you not a white deck unless you have 4 copies of Core Skyfisher, Mike?
I mean, it kind of seems like it's the cornerstone of a lot of these decks, much in the same way that Muldrifter kind of goes in every blue deck,
right?
Except for Delver. All right, so those are your actual creatures, and the thing is, a lot of the rest of this deck is creatures that don't have the word creature on them.
Mike, you're being real cryptic here.
So we got 3 copies of Koldatha Rebirth.
No. Okay.
Red mana, sacrifice an artifact as an additional cost to play it. You get 3 1/1 red goblins.
How many Acre Wellsprings are in this deck? Am
4.
I right? Please, God.
There's 4.
Okay, go on.
So we also have 3 copies of Battle Screech.
Ooh, nice.
2 and 2 white. You get a pair of 1/1s, and then it has a flashback cost of tap 3 untapped white creatures you control. So basically, as long as you have another white creature already on the board that's untapped, this is 4 mana, get 4 1/1 flyers.
This is an incredible spell out of, I want to say, Judgment.
Yes, downshifted in Vintage Masters.
Right, and it is a staple of the white weenie deck. It's an incredible white card.
It just gives you an army in a can.
Right.
It's very quick.
It's like 4 creatures over 2 cards is what you said, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And because it's flashback, if you don't want to tap, the good thing about it is it gives you 2 bodies to tap to pay its flashback cost. So in theory, as long as you have one other white creature on the battlefield, you can play this and flash it back immediately.
Right. This is just a great card. It's our Lingering Souls kind of.
Yeah. I don't think that's a completely unwarranted comparison. It does kind of the same thing. Then we've got like this interesting burn suite. So 4 copies of Lightning Bolt.
Okay.
Red for 3 damage to creature player.
Might as well.
Galv Blast. We're running enough artifacts, so why not have better Lightning Bolt sometimes? Right.
So it's a full 8.
And then 2 copies Firebolt. Red shocks something at sorcery speed and then flashes back for 4 and a red.
And Firebolt has been a staple of these kitty sort of decks for a while now, just because they're, it's 2 spells and it's a mid-range deck. So
it's 2 spells that takes 1 slot, right?
Right. So they're very popular in these sorts of builds.
Then we've also got 2 copies of Rally the Peasants.
Now,
so
this is the game changer.
Yeah, 2 and a red. Attacking creatures get +2/+0 until end of turn. Then it flashes back for 2 and a red. So this is a pair of Trumpet Blasts stapled together.
Right. And I believe you said red. It's white on the first cost.
It's white on the first cost, red on the second. Yeah.
So it's 2 Trumpet Blasts. This is an instant, so you can do both of them at once if you have the mana. Or you can, Alpha Strike. They'll kill some of your guys. You'll trade, and then you can do it again later.
Yeah. Also, if it gets discarded, that's not the end of the world. Or countered, yeah. Like flashback is a very good ability, and I'm sad we don't see it more.
And the flashback ability is what honestly makes it better than Guardian's Pledge. Like if you're using a Guardian's Pledge for the 2 toughness,
yeah,
you're not you're not doing that well.
You're often already in bad shape. Like defensive Guardian's Pledge is pretty bad. Yeah. It does not feel good.
Really, the turn you cast the pledge, you want to be winning the game or forcing your opponent to put themselves in a position where the game is no longer winnable.
Now, as we mentioned before, there are 4 copies of Ichor Wellspring in here. 2 generic mana. You get an artifact when it enters the battlefield. You draw a card. When it leaves the battlefield, you draw a card.
That combos with the core Skyfishers and the Kuldotha Rebirths generate some card advantage. I'm happy to hear there are no Prophetic Prisms in this deck.
There are 4.
No.
There are 4 Prophetic Prisms because you want to be able to draw more cards, and red and white do not get good card draw.
Right. And I guess it's just sort of the nature of the beast, but Mike and I have opinions about the kitty decks.
Yeah. They're a very specific type of mid-range deck.
Now, that being said, I think this might be one of the better versions because deck doesn't really need blue.
It's also not focused. Like it's not its main concern is not like picking up and replaying the Wellspring.
Right.
It just kind of has it in there as another value engine and also stuff to get your artifact count up so that you can Galv Blast and stuff to sacrifice to Kuldotha Rebirth.
Right, and that's fine. I think the blue deck's maybe biggest downfall is the fact that it has to play more tap lands.
Yeah, so actually, right before we get into the lands, we got a pair of enchantments. 2 copies Journey to Nowhere. It's 1 and a white when it enters the battle. It's an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, exile target creature. When it leaves the battlefield, return that creature to play.
Are there any other artifacts aside from the...
Nope, it's just 4 Wellsprings and 4 Prisms.
Okay. I think a Bone Splitter might be good in this deck.
Bone Splitter is interesting.
Got a lot of flyers.
So let's look at the lands. 4 copies of Ancient Den, the white artifact land, 2 Boros garrisons, a Forgotten Cave, 4 copies Great Furnace, the red artifact land, a mountain of plains, 2 Radiant Fountains, which is interesting, 2 copies of Secluded Steppe, and 4 copies of Windscarred Crag. So 4 gain lands, 8 artifact lands, 2 Karus, and 3 of the cycling lands.
Yeah, and I don't love the gain 2 lands here, the Radiant Fountains, but I suppose that they are good because you have so many ways of picking them back up.
Yeah, I think it's really just so that you can stabilize against, say, burn or stompy.
Because even though this sounds kind of like a fast deck, it really isn't.
Yeah, you're kind of waiting for like turn 4 or 5 so that you can just like one punch, like one shot.
Right. Are there any raise the alarms?
There are no raise the alarms actually. So we're missing some of the sort of the 2 mana get 2 power ones because we're also missing Dragon Fodder and Krenko's Command.
Yeah, that's fine though.
Yeah, I think you could make the argument for raise the alarm just because instant speed.
Yeah.
Which is nice. And for example, if you had a threat that you wanted to protect for some reason, you could kind of do that in response to an edict or something. I don't know.
Right. None of these are very good edict targets, though. Like this deck is pretty edict proof.
All right. So let's move to the sideboard. So 1 copy of Elic Trickery.
Classic.
Against the Mirror, Elves, Delver.
Basically anything, really. Elic Trickery is a very good card.
2 copies Gorilla Shaman. You gotta beat Affinity somehow, right?
Right. This deck seems okay against Affinity. This deck is very weak to Atog Fling combo, though.
Yeah. Let's hit you with this one. Copy of Clark Clan Shaman.
That is something you normally only see in the Affinity list, and I think it's interesting that it's in this deck because the reason it's so good in Affinity is because all your guys are like 4 power, right?
Yeah.
So you can sack like 3 things and wipe the board and save your own guys.
For those who don't know, Clark Clan Shaman is a red for a 1/1, and it has the ability to sacrifice an artifact. It hits every creature and player for 1.
No, it's every creature. I don't think it's players.
Okay. It doesn't hit players?
I do not think so. But it's only every creature without flying, too.
Oh, it doesn't hit flyers.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, outside of your tokens, and even most of those...
I guess you do have a lot of flyers.
Yeah. I think this is more for the Mirror or for white weenie matchups where they have a lot of troops on the ground, and it just gives you a way to deal with that. It's
even
elves.
good versus like mono black or stompy, right? Because a lot of mono black creatures are 2/2s. A lot of stompy creatures are 2/2s. You can stack it with the triggers. Yeah. You can do the stack trick.
Yeah.
Rats.
Then we got 2 copies Pyroblast. You got to beat the blue deck somehow. Copy of Relic of Progenitus. A copy of Ancient Grudge, which you can flashback off of the
prisms.
The prisms.
That works.
What else do we have here? A copy of Ray of Revelation again.
I love that card. I think that is one of the most criminally underplayed cards in the format.
I mean, in the matchups, it's good. It's really good.
Yeah, I have one in my Affinity sideboard.
And again, you can get the flashback off of the Prism.
Yeah.
2 copies Standard Bearer.
I love Standard Bearer also.
Hey, it sounds like you might like this deck.
Yeah, maybe.
Then we got 2 copies of Molten Rain. Stone Rain with an upside.
Right.
Then 2 copies of Prismatic Strands. Probably one of the best fogs for a deck that plays creatures, I'd imagine.
Yeah, Prismatic Strands is a solid card. And again, it's a flashback where you just tap something.
Yeah, and I think one of the important things is you can use this to make a one-sided fog, right?
Right.
Like if your opponent's on Stompy, you can fog all green creatures.
Right.
And your creatures still deal damage.
It's a pretty good card.
This one's actually interesting because you sometimes you play it for no value and you just want it to be in the bin so you can flash it back easier and you don't have to hold up 3 mana. So this list, pretty solid, I'd think.
Yeah, I actually kind of want to check it out. I have so many decks I want to check out too.
This one seems like a pretty solid one. It is kind of pricey though, actually.
Yeah, it's got 2 Gorilla Shamans in it, so yeah.
Well, so it's pricey in paper as well. It's $54 in paper, and it's $68 online.
I would whistle if I knew how.
So online, most of it is going to be your Gorilla Shamans. In fact, the 2 Gorilla Shamans in the sideboard make up half the cost of the deck online.
I think you said they are $17 now, which seems unreal.
Yep. According to statistics pulled from Card Order. But I'm looking through here.
Well, and the Pyroblasts are going to be a little bit.
Oh yeah, the blasts are not as expensive as they used to be, but they're still like $5. Standard Bearer is expensive online.
Yeah, Standard Bearer. And Standard Bearer is just such a good. It just absolutely crushes some matchups.
And then in paper, I know Molten Rain's slightly expensive, Relic's slightly expensive, Pyroblast are slightly expensive.
Molten Rain is actually a card where I would argue that you could sub just actual Stone Rain.
Oh, sure.
Because Molten Rain is red. Stone Rain is just red and 2. So there are legitimate reasons that you could just actually play Stone Rain. The two damage probably isn't relevant all the time. So,
and I mean, the decks is coming in against are stuff like Tron, right?
Right. Like you care more about closing the land than you do about doing the damage. So actual Stone Rain is fine.
And then also in paper, Lightning Bolt and Battle Screech are expensive, but those are kind of irreplaceable.
Yeah. I guess I'll just play Shock instead.
Yeah, Shock is a very bad Lightning Bolt,
yes.
And I can't come up with anything that's close to as good as Battle Screech for token production.
Triplicate Spirits, not.
Oof.
Maybe it has
Triplicate
Convoke.
Spirits is 6 in Convoke.
It is Convoke,
and you only get 3 of them. Man, there's a reason. There's a reason Battle Screech is like $3.
Yeah. I'm just saying. I was just thinking out loud there. Triplicate Spirits seems okay though. I mean, definitely not a replacement. But if you just don't want to, if you really want to play the deck and don't want to shell out for the Battle Screeches, Triplicate Spirits is only 1 less token.
And I think it's a 5-cent card in paper.
Yeah, it's super duper cheap. And of course, like Mike said, Battle Screech is definitely more optimal. But the Convoke makes up for that a little bit, I think.
Yeah, actually, now that I think about it, they're a little bit closer than I would have initially thought. So this deck, where does it cross over to? So you've got bits of the Jeskai
definitely
deck. And
so the big thing I think I want to point out is we've hammered this again and again and again. It's these sideboard cards that cost so much. If once you buy your Gorilla Shamans and your Pyroblast, you're basically done with like 50% of the format.
Actually, yeah. In terms of cost, in paper it's a little different because the relics are pricey. I'm trying to think what other sideboard cards are pricey. The blasts are still pricey, even though they've been reprinted now recently.
Right. Oh, like $1 or $2.
Yeah, they're like $1 or $2. They used to be much more. I don't know. I like this. It's a little bit on the pricey side, but I feel like it's a good introduction to the Kuldotha mid-range.
Right. And it's
super archetype, if you will.
It is if you're interested in playing the kitty decks, then all these cards are gonna end up playing anyway. So
yeah, some less than others. I imagine Battle Screech doesn't always go in the decks.
Yeah, that's true. That's a twist.
But the point is, a lot of these do have use in other decks, and while it might not have the most crossover of any deck we've ever reviewed on here, it's pricey, but I think most of it's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're calling it pricey. The deck is still only $60. Like, you cannot find a standard, modern, or legacy deck for that much, not competitively,
Yeah.
I mean, and that's like, 4 drafts worth of cards, basically, of cards you'll actually play again. Like, I find that the price is very easy to justify in Pauper a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Once you compare it to the scale of like other,
I mean, more
Magic
so than
cards.
anything else, I want to make sure that viewers have an idea of like, if I buy into this and I don't like it, am I going to get use out of these cards?
Yeah, and I definitely think that you will.
I mean,
because you could also easily, just with the kitty deck also, you could easily port this over to the mono white tokens list.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of the expensive cards in here.
I mean, I'm looking at the sideboard as well. The sideboard is all like sideboard staples.
Yeah,
like every single one of these. So
yeah, the sideboard, like we've said before, really where it gets you in this format.
All right, let's do we want to move on to the maybe board?
Yeah, we have a spicy little number today.
Orcish Lumberjack.
Yeah.
From Ice Age.
Yeah, you either have the one who's holding the log or you got the one in the machine, a la Warcraft 3.
So this guy, 1/1 for a red. Tap, sacrifice a forest, add 3 mana in any combination of red and or green to your mana pool.
So it rituals all of your lands. Unfortunately, you could only do it once per turn per lumberjack.
Yeah.
If you did not have the tap cost, I think this card would be so much better. Yeah. It's also
that would just be a problem.
It's also in colors that you like kind of don't care. Like you're not making blue mana or black mana. You're making red and green mana. And I mean, I guess you could argue that you could ramp into something like maybe you could put this in a red green ramp deck.
Yeah, I don't know. It was one of those cards where it was sitting in big file of cards to discuss on the maybeboard.
Yeah.
And I don't have a home for it.
And the other thing that, is sort of the other, pickle, so to speak, is that it's a red card that has to go in a green deck.
Yeah.
It's only forests.
Like you, again, it's a maybeboard card. It's probably gold in some way.
Yeah. Yeah. So the lack of, really excellent fixing sort of, makes so that's a little. You're not sacrificing Taigas to this guy,
Yeah, I was gonna say, correct me if I'm wrong, but this sees play in some other Eternal format, right?
I would be hard pressed to tell you the deck that it goes in, but it wouldn't surprise me. Fast mana is fast mana.
I want to say that I've seen it somewhere, and I know that it's like one of those weird.
And maybe it's an Aaron special.
maybe. But it's definitely an interesting card. Before the show, you pointed out similarities to Tinderwall.
Yeah, Tinderwall is green for some wall. I don't think its actual stats matter because you can sacrifice it to add red to your pool.
Yeah, so I guess one of the big things in Pauper is we don't really have a good outlet for all our fast mana.
Right, because the deck that Tinderwall goes into is One Land Spy.
It goes into One Land Spy, it goes into Defender combo, and I think that's it.
Yeah, it's not great.
So and again, like it, as opposed to a ritual, like you can't build Storm off of this.
Right.
It does permanently set you back a land.
Right. And then, like we don't even play good fast mana, right? Like Lotus Petal. Lotus Petal's like kind of not a thing in Pauper.
Yeah, Lotus Petal goes into One Land Spy, that Glass Cannon red deck, and then like it used to be an affinity, I think.
Yeah, a little. I mean, it's an artifact. You can do the old affinity trick with it. That's the trick. Actually, I don't think we've ever discussed this little secret, so I'm going to sidetrack for a second. Basically, you can announce your affinity spell. So let's say you have you're one artifact short of a Thoughtcast or something, or like you have to sacrifice an artifact to get it. You can announce the Thoughtcast and then sacrifice the artifact for the mana, and it will still have the affinity cost when you cast it.
Because anyone who's read the complete rules will tell you casting a spell involves declaring that you're casting the spell, figuring out the mana cost after cost reductions, and then paying for it.
Right. It's really strange, though, because you could technically, get the mana first. You just then won't have the affinity count. It's a really weird, like, way to game the rules, but it is a legal move. But anyway, back to this guy.
All right. So I guess looking at this, right? Turn 1, you go forest this dude. Turn 2, mountain this dude. Turn 2, forest. You have 5 mana available turn 2. What matters at 5 mana in red and green?
And here's the other thing you do for 4. You could Evolving Wilds sack and go get a forest and then make use of the forest that turn.
Ooh,
then you have 4 mana. So yeah, 4 or 5 mana in red green. Wow.
Okay. So you can get a really ridiculous amount of mana off this turn 2 if you got it in your opener.
Right. And then if you have a good creature for 4 or 5 mana in green, maybe not even a good creature. What do Aurochs cost? I feel like that's 5.
Aurochs is 6, I believe.
Okay.
Hold on. I'm gonna just do something real quickly here.
Mike is pulling up cards, and I'm gonna fill the air. It's the Adrian Show. Orcish Lumberjack is what we're talking about today.
So I'm just looking at stuff that fetches up forests, spells in particular, that are at common. That's not gonna do it. Because I'm thinking about like, Kurt Ape. Kurt Ape cares about forests.
Yeah, but you have to sacrifice the forest, so.
Okay.
That's not really. I don't like that one. It would be great if it was blue because it's like turn 2 Muldrifter.
Quirion Ranger gets goofy with it if you want to like ramp awkwardly.
Yeah, and sacrifice 2 forests. You could play. Wow, there's just not a lot of good stuff at 4 and 5, is there?
Well, so in terms of getting more forests onto the battlefield, right? Let's think about that. Like, okay. What if we just ran
fuel for the fire?
All right, Paper's special here. Gaia's Touch. It's an enchantment for green. You may put an additional land into play during each of your turns, but that land must be a basic forest.
Okay. We also have, on that same vein, Explore.
Explore, sure.
We have Rampant Growth. We have, what's that 3-mana one where you put one in your hand and one on the battlefield? Cultivate.
Kadama's Reach and Cultivate, both of them.
We also have Search.
Sky Shroud Claim. Sky Shroud Claim is 4 mana, so it's 3 and a green. You get 2 forests from your deck. Both go to the battlefield.
You know, you could put this in the Defender combo deck, right? Like, you could just turn 2, sack it, and then go and sack the forest, and then play like the one that taps for the number of defenders you control, and you just ramp out a bunch of, more mana ramp, and then, turn 3 maybe play like a Crusher or something.
Actually, hold on. Let me hit you with something. How much does the red Zendikon cost? Oh, wait, no, you're going to need blue in that. Sorry, I was trying to think if I could make this work in Freed. Yeah. But that puts you too firmly in red. And that deck is best when it's like 2 colors.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, you could ramp into stuff. It's just
like, why?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's an interesting card. It's a reusable ritual of sorts. And
yeah, so red green ramp. Someone figures that deck out, send it our way. We'd love to review it.
Oh yes, of course. We're always accepting deck submissions, and when one catches our eye, we'll put it on here. We'll talk about it.
Yeah. So make it good.
So today's discussion is going to be the meta results and how the leagues influence the appearance of the meta. So starting off, we switched to leagues a while ago now. You play more Moto than I do.
Yeah, it's definitely been a little bit. We're even sort of in our second iteration of the leagues, if you will, in that the prize structure has now changed again.
But it went from 4 rounds to 5 rounds, and it went from once a day, as implied by the name daily event, to on demand.
Right. As many times as you want, you can run your deck through the league.
Yeah. So what does this do? It means a bunch of stuff. Also noteworthy, we used to get all the 4-0s and the 3-1s. So everyone who went X and 1 or better.
Right. And I think what they've done here is used to collect more data about an individual event. But now with the dailies, they just don't collect that information anymore.
The leagues.
The leagues. Ostensibly because now there's just more data to go through, I'm guessing.
So part of the reason is now we only get the 5-0s. And part of the listed reason for other formats was Wizards believes that, what is the term that, I forget what player uses it. It's like the Great Machine or something, where there's this idea that the more people you have grinding a format, the quicker it gets solved.
Right.
Because you can just process all this data. And because of that, with the switch over to leagues, Wizards started publishing less data.
Oh, because they don't want someone to just, have standard figured out
over
the course of a week or so.
Yeah. They don't want standard getting solved super quickly. The catch is that's not really a great thing for Pauper, is it?
No, it's not. It's not a good thing for eternal or non-rotating formats at all.
Yeah. And also coupled with that is the fact that Pauper doesn't have any big events, whereas all these other formats have bigger events where they can pull data from. And while, Legacy and Vintage don't have that many, they still have them.
Right. There are still more high-end Legacy events than there are Pauper events because there is one high-level Pauper event, and it's not even like a quote-unquote official tournament,
Yeah. Even Legacy gets a couple GPs a year, right?
Yeah, exactly. Or at least a PTQ or PPTQ. And also, there's more data available in those big events because not only do you get the people who actually win the event in the top 8, you also get all the decks from day 1, all the decks that make it to day 2, and you get a meta breakdown of the entire field.
And even events that are only one day, you can still look at a whole bunch of data. Like you could even, if you just take I want to take everything that's X and 2 or better. There's a lot of insight to gain there.
And the thing of it is, 5-0 is good. 5-0 is the winningest of the winningest, But 4-1 is also not bad, and I feel like we kind of shame the 4-1 slot a little because like you don't have to totally win out all of your games in a GP in order to make top 8.
Yeah.
You know, and it's actually like kind of unrealistic to think that one person will be able to do that consistently.
Well, I mean, so if you've got a 50-50 chance of each game going your way, let's say, in order to 5-0, just if you assume it's a static 50-50 on each match,
it's still a coin flip.
Like hold on. That's half, quarter, eighth, 16th. It's a 1 in 32 chance if it's just a 50-50.
Right. It is incredibly difficult.
Yeah, like it's an actual accomplishment, and I think people overlook that. And so, you know, again, using that same projection model of like, let's say all your matchups are 50-50, the 4-1 is still 1 in 16, which isn't exactly an unimpressive feat.
Right. And you only have to 3-2 in order to
break even, right?
Yeah. Or at least that's how it was for the treasure chest, which admittedly I have not played a whole lot since those came out. 3-2 might not be very good anymore for all I know.
I think I remember someone telling me that 3-2 is still pretty much good enough to break even.
Okay, cool.
And so how you referred to it as shaming the 4-1. How much of that do you think is the fact that you don't get published?
I think it's a huge deal because 4-1, like, you know, what I'm trying to say here is like, it's not that I don't want to see the most winning decks. Like, obviously I want to see the decks that are doing the best, but you know, you don't know what those 5 decks played against, right? Like 4-1, they could have gotten, they could have mulled the 5-1 game. You know, the deck might still be better overall, even though it did not win that particular day.
Well, let me hit you with this. Which is more impressive to you? The deck that 2 decks get run through the league 5 times in a row, let's say, and deck A is an established list and it 4-1s 5 times.
Right.
Deck B is a rogue list that has a handful of really good matchups and a bunch of bad matchups. They run through 5 times. 4 of them are 0-5s and 1 is a 5-0.
I would rather be the 4-1 deck.
Yeah, exactly.
I would rather be able to consistently be able to, and that's what grinders want, right? They want to be able to consistently turn a profit on these.
Yeah.
And 5-0, 1-5-0. I mean, I got to play 5 times to get 1-5-0. It's not worth it to me.
Yeah. So I think one of the interesting things is because of the way these results are published, you wind up with decks that get, you know, I guess quote unquote the fame of being 5-0 that may never replicate that result, right?
Right, because they could have, you know, to coin, not to coin a phrase, but to invoke the phrase, they could have gotten lucky.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, and I totally think that that's a thing even at our local meta because it's only going to be 4 rounds, right? Like you can run hot on a deck that is not the best. Right. Or is not even the best for the meta, or could just be bad.
I mean, look how good Domain Z's been doing. You know, no offense to you, Alex, you're an expert with that deck.
Yeah, but I mean, especially, and that's a case of an even smaller field too, right?
Right. Like, but it is by no means considered a tier 1 deck.
Yeah, and you see these tier 2, tier 1.5 decks that can go 4-0 at our local meta. Because, you know, good matchups, you know, just like having things run hot. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's just something that people need to take into consideration. Not every 5-0 is in the leagues is a good deck.
And then, you know, since we're not getting the 4-1s anymore, it's just not indicative of the overall winning decks of the meta anymore, you know? And because like we were mentioning earlier, like people were saying, well, where is Mono Black? It's like, well, what if Mono Black is just a 4-1 deck now, even despite Drake being banned? We don't know because we don't see the 4-1s.
Yeah, like I don't know. It's just weird that we have like this whole sort of, and I think it's literally like just if we saw 4-1s, we would get such a better picture of the meta,
right?
Because the difference between 4-1 and 5-0 is 1 match,
right?
And it could just be like, oh man, you know, I was on Boggles, I was at 4-1, and then my last match was Mono Black, and I just can't win that.
Right.
Like sometimes you wind up in the nightmare matchup.
Or, you know, I'm on Affinity, I'm doing really, really well. I play against the guy who draws Gorilla Shaman on turn 2, or plays Gorilla Shaman on turn 2, games 2 and 3, and it's like, there was just no beating that.
Or just I had really bad draws.
Yeah, I mulled the 3 and couldn't do anything.
Yeah, like
because variance is inherent in the game. Like even the best players don't win all the time. Like look at the pro players who consistently top 64 GP and consider that good.
Well, I mean, I think the pros say that they consider about a 60 to 65% win rate good,
yeah.
and that's like a 2. That's like a 3-2.
That was a failing grade in college.
And that's something that they're happy to do. Like pros who are going there are like, yeah, man, I've had a great season. I've won like 6 out of every 10 matches. And I think that's important to realize is,
it's just that variance is so inherent in the game. So yeah, we're clearly not getting the whole meta picture here. And honestly, there's no way to really remedy this unless Wizards decides to start publishing that data.
Yeah. And I think everything 3-2 and above is relevant data.
Right.
Because,
heck, I like it all, to be honest with you. But,
I can certainly see the argument for not publishing 05 so that,
I want to know what the Zubero list is.
I mean, I can see the impetus for not publishing like the 05s and the 14s because it's a bit of a mark of shame, right? It's not exactly reflecting well on you.
Look how bad these people did.
Yeah, like I think anything with a 3-2 or above, though, it's like, okay, you had a positive record. You won more than 50% of your matches. What were you doing and how is it working? Is this a case? Because then you can look and you can say, all right, is this a 4-1 because it probably had a bad matchup? Or is this a 4-1 because it just can't reliably close out 5 matches in a row? And I think that sort of data is really important. Now, we do also have data from paper events, right?
The few that there are, yes.
The few that there are, yes. And one of the issues with that is most of them are one-day events, which means it's a smaller crowd. I think the one in Italy is one of the bigger ones, and they get like 70 people.
Right.
So we have less data to work with. And the other issue is the paper versus online split.
Yeah, because now you're not only trying to aggregate, all this data that there's a lot of people. You're also having to think about like different ban lists and different.
Yeah. For example, the thing that just the Saltai teachings list that just took down Rags to the Riches 7. You can't play that on Moto. Like it's got desert in it.
Yeah, it's got desert in it.
So you kind of have this issue of even if we use data from those, it doesn't really fully help us because
right, like it just lets you imagine how much better teachings would be with desert in
it. The answer is much.
Yes,
the answer is much much better.
Definitely,
but I don't know. It feels like a big failing to me for the format because friend of the show, J Siri 84 on Twitter, had a quote the other day. He said, "Pauper right now is like watching a bunch of people try to go 100 miles an hour in a go-kart." And I really liked that because it is. You don't need to, in order to get that 5-0 with your list. Most people don't consistently, repeatedly 5-0 with brews. Like you'll see a brew pop up once, it goes on Reddit, you see it on Twitter for a hot second. And
we cover it on a certain show.
Yeah, we probably talk about it because it's our wheelhouse. But then a lot of these brews kind of vanish, right? And
yeah, that 14 Swamp Black deck. I don't think it's published another 5-0.
You got 2 5-0s and then up and vanished.
Yeah,
and in that case, I think it was just the fact that 14 lands is a little rough on consistency.
A little hellacious.
So I think, you look at a format like even Modern, and the decks that do well are generally ones that are very consistent in their game plan.
Well, but even that, like, I went... There are so many events where Affinity doesn't make top 8. Affinity is supposedly one of the most popular decks in the format.
Yeah.
Or one of the best / most popular decks in the format, and I see several events where that deck does not top 8.
Well, I mean,
so it just comes back down to the variance thing.
Yeah,
even when one of the top decks with format doesn't consistently make it to the top brackets of a given GP, like variance is a thing.
Yeah. especially with modern and the level of sideboard cards they have there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Let's like go down that path. But
I'm not saying we should burn every copy of Kentucky Wars Wage, but I'm not saying we shouldn't either.
Getting completely wrecked by Kamigawa block.
Oh yeah.
But here's another example. Where was it? Was it Argentina? Was that the time that black green aristocrats list showed up and won, and then like had a couple 5-0s and vanished?
Yeah,
and that was it.
Yeah, and that's a fun deck too.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad deck. I just don't think. I think sometimes things fall your way, right? Like It could come down to, and I'm not even joking here, your difference between a 4-1 and a 5-0, it could be the die roll.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to impress on people that, 5-0s are not the quote unquote word of God.
Right. Really what I think we're getting at here is that the 5-0s are a very useful tool. They're a very useful tool to see what is winning at a given point. Sometimes a rogue group pops up on there, but you got to take it with a grain of salt.
You got to take it with several grains of salt, I think.
And you cannot consider it, like you just said, to be
gospel.
Yeah, to be the end all be all of what the meta currently looks like, because it's just not.
All right, so what would be some solutions here?
Obviously, Wizards releasing the data would be a big one.
Yeah, I saw someone a while ago on the Reddit suggest people compiling on their own
when they 4-1.
When they 4-1. Catch that being, it's a little hard to verify, and what's to stop someone from just, I don't know, submitting a list that they claim they 5-0'd with that's just like 60 mountains. Like it becomes a little bit of an overhead nightmare in terms of managing something like that. But something like that would help if people all took it seriously and were honest about it, and that way we could see like a little bit of super salient data that's right underneath the crust. Like, especially because,
I never thought about this much, but God, this is actually really annoying.
What?
Just that we can't see these 4-1s.
Well, yeah, because you can look at the 4-1s and you can say like, oh man, this looks really sweet, but I can see like there's certain improvements to be made in this list, and if I swap these cards out, I bet I could make this a 5-0 deck.
Yeah.
And even just being able to like have more visibility, and I know some people get a very like physical, very big mental reward from saying like, look, I got my name on here.
I mean, I've done it. It's a rush,
and there's nothing wrong with that, right? You 5-0'd, be proud of it, right? And giving people the ability to also have their 4-1s published, I think that's helpful, for some people who, if you've been struggling to get that 5-0 and get your name on there, you don't have to have that lucky break, right? Your variance is a little down. Like I don't think publishing the 4-1s hurts anyone, and I think it helps the meta as a whole.
So would there be a world where Wizards would publish the 4-1 data from the Eternal and non-rotating formats and not standard?
I think that would be great. I understand. I think restricting standard results from leagues to 10 per day is good. I think doing it for a format like Pauper or Legacy is actively harmful.
Everyone call Wizards. We will not go unheard.
we demand to be taken seriously. We're a real format.
Yeah, we demand salient data points. We know you have them, Wizards. We know you do.
Yeah, I mean they do. Like they could be publishing that data and they just don't. And it's a shame because I really think it would give us a much better idea of if the format's healthy. Because, if you're seeing, one of the super archetypes, like let's say mid-range is really flagging, but you're noticing that mid-range is doing really well in the 4-0s, you feel a little bit better about the health of the format because it means these decks are still doing well. They're not closing out 5-0s, but they're not losing. They're not going 0-5, right?
Right. They're not getting thrashed.
Yeah. And it also helps, sort of clarify a little bit of like strata of results, because being able to say, like, this is a deck that consistently 5-0s, 4-1s, and 3-2s.
Right, and then you're like, okay, well, that's a good deck, because
it's a good deck.
It's represented everywhere.
Exactly, and it's very popular.
And you can also see, have a better idea of what the tier 1.5 looks like, because you'll see all those decks that are consistently 4-1, even if they never get a 5-0.
Yeah, and I think
I think Pauper especially has a very wide 1.5 band ring.
Yeah, I mean. Tier 1.5 again,
like whatever happened to Slivers? Remember Slivers?
Yeah, Slivers kind of vanished. I mean,
that's a T1.5 deck we haven't seen in a minute.
Goblins has kind of completely vanished in favor of Red Deck Wins.
I mean, I'm not saying Red Deck Wins is the best mono red deck, but it is.
I mean, also Burn has been flagging a bit, and again, like, just being able to get another point of data.
And it's not like Burn isn't popular. Like
it's hugely popular.
Yeah, Burn is a very popular deck.
I don't get on Moto that often, and every time I do, I think I face off against Burn, and it's like
there's at least one Burn.
Well, and we definitely forget about that, because in paper it's drastically underrepresented. It's actually kind of a pricey deck in paper.
Yeah. Well, Chain Lightning got reprinted, so
Chain Lightning got reprinted, which took it from like $100 to $60, but most of the cards in that deck only go in Burn.
Right.
Also, Burn does have another issue of people haven't quite decided if Thermo Alchemist is right yet. I think it's wrong.
Yeah.
I think with people playing Edicts again, it's just not as good. Like, it gives them more targets for their removal. All right, so again, we're seeing a warped view of the meta. We're looking at a full picture through a funky, scratched up lens that distorts whatever we're looking at.
Yeah.
So,
well, I guess there's nothing we can do about it for now.
Yeah, there's not much we can do about it. I would love to tell all of you out there that, I'll just call my dude at Wizards and, we'll fix this.
Mike has no dude at Wizards.
I have no dude at Wizards.
I have no dude at Wizards.
I probably couldn't convince them to alter, a very large decision.
So you call your dude at Wizards, everyone who's listening.
Yeah, if you know a dude at Wizards, please let them know. Those 4-1 data points,
we want them.
We want them. Very useful. We'll use them responsibly. But it's something to keep in mind. And, I know I'm always the one who tries to end on positive messages, but a 4-1 is still good. Like,
yeah, all you 4-1s out there, you're doing a great job. You are a huge part of the metagame. We could not do it without you. I want you all to pat yourself on the back.
Yeah, like 4-1's nothing to slouch at. 3-2 even is, doing better than 50%.
If I 3-2, I'm okay, because at least I didn't lose anything.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if you're breaking even, that just means you get to play more Magic, right?
Yeah,
like,
that's exactly
it.
You
go back in, you join another league if you got the time for it.
Exactly.
And, learn.
Yeah.
Take data points. We've always encouraged people to, as you play a deck, whether it be a brew or a new deck, track data points. Try and identify those weak matchups. Try and figure out why you can't win those matchups as reliably as other ones.
Or be like me and just get super frustrated. Both of these are good options. Mike has a very calculated response. I have a very emotional response.
See, I'm just... It's the zen of salt. You just got to let the salt flow through you.
That's why we call him Zen Mike. No one calls him that.
No one calls me that.
He actually flies into fits of rage on the regular.
This is all a carefully crafted facade.
Yeah, the veneer of Mike.
But keep pushing, keep working on it. Hopefully Wizards, pays attention and actually starts digging into these other results and letting us see, because it would be great. And
I mean they used to, so I can only imagine that it's just easier for them. It must be easier for them not to do any at all than it is for them to just do everything but standard.
I have a feeling that it's the same chunk of code that pushes those results to a server somewhere, and I have a feeling they just don't want to write separate things for different formats, and I can understand that as someone.
That's a lot of work, a lot of support.
Yeah. All right. Any other recap thoughts you want to kind of squeeze in here?
No, I think that's about it for me.
All right.
If you have any questions, let me know.
I just want to do some quick housekeeping, just in terms of stuff for the show that people might want to be informed of.
Is this the first time I'm hearing about it?
No.
Okay.
Phew. So I've talked about it in passing with some people. I will be moving in the middle of January, back up to Boston. You already knew about this. So let's not go here, theater boy.
Why?
But there's some reasons I don't want to fully get into all of them, in a public forum. But I do want to tell people that the show will continue. Like, we might miss a week or two while I actually physically move and have to, relocate all of my possessions into a new place.
Maybe we'll just have 2 weeks of the Adrian show.
There you go. We can get 2 weeks of Adrian streaming and putting it up on the channel. That actually might not be bad if you wanted to do that.
Yeah. Oh, I just meant do the whole podcast, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you want to do the whole podcast, get guests on and all that, sure, go for it. I'm not going to say no. But we just something to be aware of. There may be a brief interruption in service. The podcast will continue. We will keep, bringing back the maybeboard, the deck techs. You don't have to worry about it. But I did want to kind of get that out there. So, there will be a slight change in the vibe of the show, I'm imagining, just not being in the same room. We'll probably have Skype on so we can see each other and have a good chuckle about it. We're going to use the same audio equipment, so you will get the same audio quality. And also, another housekeeping thing. I have been super busy with orchestrating this move, so I have not been able to get on with the Patreon. That is still happening. You will be able to fund us if you believe that we deserve money for what we do. That's on you.
It's on me? Or on the audience?
On the audience. If the audience has made up their mind.
He was looking directly at me when he said it. I was like, I'm not gonna contribute to the Patreon.
No. It is completely up to the audience. And as we've said before, the Patreon will be a way to sponsor us to create additional content. This podcast is never going to be behind a paywall. We're never going to, make stuff that's only for paying listeners. You're always going to get all the content. It's just, if you pay us, we can justify spending more of our time
That's sweet,
on this.
Hot, juicy content.
That's sweet, delicious, sticky content.
The discourse.
All right. Well, this was kind of a short episode, but we didn't want to drag it out, Nope.
I mean, we're coming right at time here. I don't think it's really that much shorter.
Yeah, it's a couple minutes shorter, but Adrian,
with our new and improved outro. Da, da, da.
Yeah.
Should I sing it?
No.
Oh.
Let's just go with it.
Well,
spoken.
I guess thank you for joining us today. Check below this video in the description of this podcast for details on where to find us. Would like to remind you that if you're listening to this on a platform with reviews, they're always appreciated as they boost our visibility. If you've got a deck list or an idea for a topic, feel free to contact us either via our website or by emailing us directly at colorcommentary@gmail.com. Special thanks to Pat's Games and L. Till next time, this is Adrian and Mike, and we are signing off for Color Commentary.